Hello and welcome to tutorial 2 of the Java programming application that should help. We will now be looking into conditions. Now, conditions are used to determine a flow of a program. There are multiple ways to determine a decision in programming. Two different examples would be if statements and switch statements, both using true or false Boolean values to determine which paths to take. Now, in this example, we are going to primarily focus on the if statement, because this is for more basic, and learning the switch statement isn't too hard. So if you can fully grasp what an if statement is, you'll be able to understand this. So in the example I am currently writing, I am showing you the syntactic elements where you have if as the keyword, condition in the following parenthesis, and within the curly brackets, a block of code which will consist of a number of statements. This is one way to write an if statement in the Java programming language. An if statement is a form of decision-making syntax that is used in most high-level programming languages. It works from the top and works downwards. One rule that you have to know about, though, is when you have multiple if statements, or if-else's, which I'll explain later, you must always start with the general condition at the top. An example that I'm currently showing you is 12 less than 13. If this condition is true, obviously it is, it'll execute the block of code, while 12 minus less than 11 will not execute the block of code. Now, moving on, we are now using nested if statements. So, if the outermost if statement is true, we will then move on to the most inner one. An example I'm going to currently give us is the triangle problem, which is commonly used, which is point A, point B, point C. So if A equals to B and B equals to C, we know it is a certain type of triangle. Now there are other ways of doing this using the Boolean operators, which I'll explain to you in a bit. However, this is showing a successful example of how a nested if statement would work. Moving on now, we're now going to look into if-else. So if grade is less than 60, as I'm writing my example, else if grade, if grade is less than 50, forgot the condition there, do AAA, else, which will always has to be at the end of it because that's the default value. So if none of the conditions are true, this is what we must then execute. So we must work downwards. So if grade is less than 60, which would be the more specific one, if grade is less than 50, and so on and so forth. It's a slightly more complex way of doing it. However, logic runtimes can occur. A common error that programmers do not consider, as I keep emphasizing here, is ordering of the if statements. Now, moving on to Boolean operators, which is where most errors can come up, is logical errors. So an example of the Boolean operators is negation one. So as we can see, I've just defined a variable continue, which is being true. Using the negation operator in front of it, it inverses its current value to false. The next one I will use is the OR operator. So imagine we have grade, which is less than 30, or we have grade, which is greater than 40. Now, for this to execute in an if statement, only one of the two properties must return a value code. Doesn't matter which one. However, if we were to use the AND operator, sorry, trouble to find it there, both properties execute the block of code. Otherwise, it returns false and you don't execute the block of code. So, given an example here of a basic syntactical if statement. So, moving on, if countries is less than 51, we are going to print out that it is the United States. To be fair, it should be states, but I got this wrong when I was doing the example. So we'll print out USA is this country. So whatever they've inputted for the variable country, number-wise, else we're just going to say this is not the USA. What I would recommend for you to do now is take what you've learned from here and try and write a very basic blackjack decision game. So you have a static variable of 2 players and try and write win conditions. So if player 1 has 12, if player 2 has 22, player 1 wins. Those are the examples. The rules are very easy and they are probably available online. So I hope this helps. I hope you try out the example and I hope to see you in the next video tutorial. Bye!